All right, guys, we got the club going up on a Tuesday afternoon. We got Andy, we got Clay, we got myself. We got some interesting things going on in the NFT space. Andy spinning up a new project, Escher. We're going to hear about that. A little drama in the streets. Kevin Rose getting hacked. Ryan Carson under fire out of spaces. All that good stuff. Plus, we're going to check out some of the Underdog NBA drafts. Andy has been deep in the lab, beefing up his process for that. And I'm sure we'll touch on a little Super Bowl stuff as well. Let's do it. All right, guys, I feel like we're settling into this new Tuesday afternoon time. It felt a little weird at first, but I don't know. It's starting to feel good.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's way more convenient for me to not like lose the whole night.
I know.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's, the club started out with a nightclub-esque feel, but now, we're getting older. We have kids now. And
Yeah.
we gotta have dinner at 5:30, be in bed by 8. It's just a new generation of the club.
A little wiser, more mature, as they say.
I get. That's right. That's right.
Something
Clay,
like
how are
that.
you doing?
What happens when you're a parent, right?
I'm great, man. Yeah, I feel wiser and more mature. I don't know, this new time, I'm settling in. I'm enjoying it though. I like the matinee clubs.
Is that a conscious choice to say mature instead of mature?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. That's a mature.
Trying to like sound classy or something.
Yeah, you gotta like enunciate a little bit, give it a little extra oomph.
And Andy, did I backstage here? You're saying you're doing some extended fasting these days?
Yeah, this is my first like successful one. I tried it a couple times. But yeah, so I didn't eat from like Sunday after dinner until today at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m.
Yeah. And what was your overall takeaway? I think what would be? I've done a 72-hour. I think is the longest I've done, but I don't mind those like 36 to 48-hour ones.
No, I felt pretty good, honestly. I'll probably try to keep doing it. I had a lot of energy. Yeah, generally felt good. I was like hungry for a little bit, like dinner time on Monday, but then that kind of passed, and then I was hungry when I woke up in the morning.
It's like a black coffee situation, like you do that, or just pure water.
Yeah,
juices,
I still do coffee.
What did you break the fast with? Yeah. Because the longer you push the fast, like the more careful you have to be with like what you eat with that first meal.
I just had a croissant, egg and cheese.
That's
pretty good.
It's when you do like the week-long fast, you can't like just fire up like a Philly cheesesteak sandwich.
You can't work down this.
I do. Yeah. I used to do that. My playbook, I haven't done it in a while because my like whole thing the past couple of years has been more trying to practice moderation, which I struggled with. But when I first started doing intermittent fasting, I would use it as like a reset after a weekend trip, like you'd go and that
was my motivation.
Yeah. And then I would come back and be like, you know what? I can go a decent bit without eating. And it almost felt, I kind of had to like re-engineer how I thought about it because it almost came across like it was like punishing myself for like Gordon. So it's like, now I found a more healthy thing, but it was a good reset tool for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like it. It felt good.
Yeah, it definitely is one of those things too. Like I know people who've messed around with intermittent fasting. You got to build up your window. If you just jump into it cold turkey, it can be very, very painful. Let's see. Lunchable says, after a while, food starts to sound gross. Then you eat and want a whole can of Pringles. Yes. Well, I believe they even say once you pop, the fun doesn't stop. Lunchable. Andy, why don't you tell us about Escher? You had kind of hinted that something like this was coming. I still have lots of questions. Like I saw the post, the Twitter, the website is very, mysterious, but for people who aren't familiar, what is this? What do you got cooking up?
Yeah. So we are, basically we've been trying to figure out like, how do we be a part of the edition space for a while? Kind of really started thinking about it in like more seriously in like September of last year. And kind of what we decided on was there wasn't really a marketplace that was totally geared towards editions. And I think that editions have like some pretty unique kind of things about them comparatively to the way that OpenSea or like Blur tailor their marketplace experience. And so, yeah, we're going to be like curating kind of at the artist level. So it's very, very hard to discover all the artwork by an artist that exists right now. And like kind of all the stuff they've made, where it lives. It's on different contracts, different marketplaces. And so we're going to kind of curate all of that and hopefully just be like a really nice and easy to use marketplace to transact for that stuff.
I think I know what additions mean, but maybe there's other people out there like myself who don't fully know. What do you mean by that when you say additions?
Yeah, it is basically NFTs, traditionally more like artworky stuff, but also you could maybe be like in-game assets, stuff like that, where there are multiple NFTs that all have the same metadata. So like, to be honest, an incredible example is just NBA Top Shot moments are essentially additions, where there's, you know, a LeBron James moment is 1 out of 1,000, and all 1,000 outside of serial number are basically the same. And so it's a market that's really erupted with like the checks recently, and a lot of like open editions and stuff like that, and which has been very kind of affirming to our plans when it comes to this market.
I was going to say that had to have been because clearly you guys have been working on this for a while, and it's literally been in the past like week that the kind of open edition meta has really blown up.
Yeah, over like kind of right before Christmas, it started to get hot, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. Like, this is happening faster than I thought." And this whole month, and kind of it's been like a slow burn up through this last week, especially. It was kind of like crazy. There's just been a lot of really big edition sales and things like that, which, like I said, it's been very validating for like the idea. But at the same time, I was like, "Shit, I thought we had longer. Like, I didn't think this was going to happen yet." But we should be live. We're shooting for late next month as like a conservative approach, but we're trying to take a bit of a different approach when it comes to like building more publicly. I think for like a lot of the stuff we've done prior to this, we've kept our cards pretty close to our chest up until launch, and we're trying to do that differently this time. And so once we got to a point where we felt comfortable sharing it, we wanted to share it and kind of be bringing like artists and collectors along for the ride more as we get closer, and hopefully be able to do like some private beta stuff potentially, and get people in earlier and all of that.
Yeah, I feel like in general, too, people appreciate that of just being part of the process and seeing how it goes. Like that ends up being driving interest, more than even the product itself sometimes.
Yeah, no, totally. I think
that's one of the most.
Go
ahead. Sorry. No, I was just saying that's like one of the most challenging needles to thread is, and I'm always like so impressed by the projects and the companies out there who are doing it really well in this space. Like Floor app is one that comes to mind. I think Chris just does a fantastic job of like how he talks about them building and like what they're working on like a weekly basis. Something like we've taken a lot of inspiration in for our new path forward to 2023 on like the Knights front, and it's a cool thing. It's definitely like you gotta like play that song, the dance between you don't want like over promise or say something that people get attached to, but then like it might make more sense business wise to like adjust the sales slightly, which doesn't really inherently change anything other than like one thing that was dangled out there. But I think overall it's like, what is a better way than to get immediate feedback from the community, right? From who you're building this product forward with. And it's to your point,
especially when the community is so excited to give feedback.
Absolutely. Like, that's what we're doing for the app.
It's
beautiful, man. It is like a beautiful thing. Like we're like the Discord is so fun with people like with ideas or like they have like feature requests for the app. And like, that's a fun space to be working in when it's like everyone's got like a great idea for how to like make this the most fun experience. And like I think it's a lot of similarities there with like what y'all are building here.
Yeah. So is this
totally
compared to some of the stuff that you guys did initially with Fractional and Tessera and stuff? Would you say this is more the heavy lifting is more on the front end in the UI kind of experience versus some of that other stuff with Fractional? I assume was a lot more like back end coding stuff, or is this a heavy lift on the back end too?
Yeah, totally. I think the heaviest lifts that we're seeing right now is one, wanting to aggregate all of the NFTs for each artist that we have on the platform is no small task. And like part of the reason that we think this product needs to exist is that doesn't exist. And so there is no place right now to just go and say, let me see every single Alpha Centauri Kid NFT that exists and the market and have it be a marketplace and buy whatever I want. And so like I'm basically manually going through and finding all of their work and aggregating it and kind of creating these listings. And then we're building like custom marketplace infrastructure to handle that, which is definitely pretty heavy, but it's mostly on the non-smart contract side. It's just building out website support and infrastructure there. So it's definitely more like traditional web development challenges as opposed to like deep crypto challenges.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's crazy too how like aggregation is still like such an issue. You would think with so much now with how well documented everything is. It's actually funny. I went down this path with a friend of mine. This was years ago where I had an idea of like we should have a podcast IMDb essentially where I could go look up, a comedian and find every single podcast he had ever been on that appearance. And I was like, how does something like this not exist? I think there's kind of versions of it now, but it's still just such a tall task in general to aggregate everything really well in one spot.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, it's definitely just such a massive pain point. Like we've already noticed just, in posting yesterday, I've gotten tons of DMs from artists being like, this sounds awesome. Let me know when I can like test it and give my input. Because like, we were talking to some, like there's the X copy Dune board that you had pulled up, but then like talking like Brian Brinkman, who, has done art block stuff. He's been
Brian's
in the
awesome.
NFT space. Yeah, he's a man.
He's
been in the
people.
NFT space since 2019. And so he has drops on a million different platforms. And so he showed me he literally has a Google sheet that he keeps all of his NFTs on. And so when someone wants to collect his stuff, he sends them that Google sheet. And so kind of like our really short-term go-to-market is like, hey, what if we just replace your Google sheet with a website?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Talk about product market fit. That's
for real.
And it's also like an interesting approach too, I guess, from like a business standpoint of like, other marketplaces attract people either like incentivizing transactions or whether with fees or whatever, or the liquidity, like we can get you in front of a lot of people, but to actually cater to the artist and say, we're going to display your stuff and, work from that direction. I could just see a lot of artists wanting to saddle up with you guys. And it sounds like that's already happening.
Yeah, I mean that's the case we're hoping for, is basically that we can try to build something that's so compelling for them that they want to share what we've built with their collectors. And like to us, the best marketing that we could ever have isn't token incentives or traders coming to the platform, but the artists who are really the ones who are building these collector bases and communities, liking what we built enough that they want to share it and link to it and use it. And so that's like kind of our main focus to start.
At the risk of getting like too in the weeds and nerdy, so how much of that stuff will be artists coming to you and helping self-aggregate and be like, this is where everything is, versus what is your mechanism for crawling or finding all of this stuff if you aren't getting direct help from the artist?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's just like searching OpenSea and shit, and like checking their wallet addresses. And like basically, I have a couple different websites that I'll go to that kind of do some amount of aggregation. And I know most of the major marketplaces that have ever existed, and like we have kind of just like a list and we fill it in. And at the end of the day, like we're not going to be perfect. Like I thought I had done all of them for a few artists, and then like I was just scrolling Twitter and saw a new one that had like a new NFT that I hadn't seen before. And like that's fine. I think what we're long term, we want to make it so that an artist can kind of claim we're calling it like a showroom, basically, of all of their work, and then they can manage it. And we don't have to be the ones who are managing every single thing, but we can. So like kind of it'll be more of a collaborative effort of like, hey, we're gonna miss stuff sometimes. You're gonna drop a new NFT at midnight on a Wednesday, and no one on our team is gonna be awake to add it to your showroom. And like sometimes we're gonna try to build as much automation as possible, but sometimes it just won't be possible. And so it'll be a pretty collaborative effort there. And especially at the start, we're going to kind of try to roll out pretty small at first, maybe with support for 10 or 15 artists, and then build up over time. We'll mostly be like DMing those artists beforehand and saying like, hey, here's your page. Is this everything? Have we missed anything? And then try to slowly scale it up from there.
What would be a really cool idea is if you kind of mix this idea with like a gem-like concept, and it's basically would be like the completest, dream, where you could go to an artist and you could market floor buy every single one of their NFTs in like one direct bundle. Like that's
a really good idea.
Yeah, because I think about like, my favorite author, Haruki Murakami, and like, I read all his main ones, and then I'd go to his Wikipedia, I'd find the short stories, and then I'd have to buy a random book where he had a short story, because I just like the completist in you kicks in, and I can see that really happening, because it'd be attractive to be like, I want one of every one of these.
That's a really good idea. I'm going to send that to the team.
There you go. In the same way, I helped found Fractional with my 1/5 CryptoPunk video. I have now, just continue to get royalties on these ideas. Sweet. Well, that's awesome. And you guys can follow Escher XYZ. I assume the Twitter is the best place for updates, or your Twitter.
Yeah, either that Twitter or my Twitter will be the best places. And we'll slowly start rolling out stuff on like the website, Escher.xyz and all of that. But for now, Twitter is the place to be.
So we tagged him on our club tweet today, so you can go find him there. Easy follow.
There you go. Andy, always out here building, always out here. Even in like, I feel like we're not quite in the heart of a bear market anymore. There's like enough action going around. I see excitement in all different corners of the NFT and crypto world these days.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it used to be. There's a lot happening, and if you're staying curious and like keeping an eye out for stuff, there's a lot of places to have some fun and make some money.
Like even last week when we talked about the checks open edition NFT, like wasn't the floor around 1 ETH, and isn't it double even where it was?
It's at like 2.5 now. Yeah,
that's
crazy.
Wild.
I saw it. I first saw it like 0.3 something, 0.4. I was like, oh,
I was watching the mint, and I was like, wow. I was watching the mint when like 4,000 had been minted out, and now it minted out like 16,000. And I was like, wow, 4,000 of these? That's a lot. Why are people still minting?
I think the floor was that high, and they weren't minted out yet. It was it was wild.
The closest I knew as to that we're back was seeing like the regret tweets about the checks. Someone was like, I would have made $1 million if I would have bought 100 of these. I was like, those were the old tweets we used to see about the Bored Apes, right? Like, I would have had $10 million if little life in the NFT streets these days. Speaking of which, I don't know, did you guys catch some of the Ryan Carson spaces and the drama over the weekend? I've been pretty unplugged from NFT stuff, but even I had to tap into that. I tuned in right when Sobi was just absolutely lighting him up. Did you guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I love Sobi. I think that Ryan, it's hard to tell how much he has good intentions. I feel like he comes off like he does, but I feel like you can only fuck up so many times before maybe you just don't have that good of intentions. It seemed like his desire to raise money publicly is just like really weird. I just don't. Honestly, I don't understand like what the fuck he's trying to get out of this. And like, you always ask people for their permission to share their name in like a fundraising announcement and like share it beforehand and say, hey, we're going to share this thing. And like the fact that everyone was so caught off guard by this, like just really bad vibes.
And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the TLDR, this guy, Ryan Carson, who has had just a roller coaster rollout in the NFT space, initially was with Moonbirds when they launched, and then kind of got busted for almost some like insider trading with knowing the rarities and then market buying them before I think it was publicly known. So then, Kevin Rose had to let him go there. Then he like spun up his own like NFT media stuff, the Daily Dose, where he does these daily spaces, and really blown up there. Apparently had success. I haven't been listening to them, but then he's had this is his second fund he's tried to raise for. And this specific controversy was he went around to a lot of big names, essentially got verbal commitments on like 10K checks, which based on what he was raising at was a small check, because then the next round of asks he got 160,000 as the minimum check, but was using the bigger names who verbally committed as carrots to basically FOMO people into wanting to invest in the fund, which obviously a very slimy practice at worst and probably illegal, or at best and illegal at worst. So yeah, it was a wild thing. I don't know how this guy keeps getting second chances, but he somehow always lands on his feet.
I met Ryan
at
the Web3 Expo in Vegas a little bit, and yeah, I mean, he's a very nice guy in person and very charismatic. And it was a really like the stage he hosted was I think like Zeneca was up there, and Rick Halsdow and a couple other people like in this space, which was like really cool. It was like one of like the kind of like Shark Tanky pitch things, but it is fascinating, man. There's some of the stuff that like I don't have like too strong of a take on it one way or the other than I just the details are, I think like they raise some eyebrows, and such as like even the it's precise number of like seats he had left to for investor space like matched perfectly from like the old fund to like this fund. It was like he was waiting for like 74 people for like the first fund, and there was like 74. It was some like weird stuff like that people were like finding out about. And I thought that the biggest thing was just like, yeah, if every single person here is like, this caught me off guard that my name and likeness was used in a tweet with a link, which I think the link was probably the biggest, hang up here overall. Because some people were like, I knew my name would be used in an announcement. I just didn't know it would be used in this way or this manner. That was a part that I thought was probably the most like not great. But yeah, it's just, the spaces are wild. The Daily Dose, I mean, he gets like 3,000, 4,000 people every morning on these spaces. And then my understanding is that they're even doing like satellite versions of them. So like people in even like other countries are like hosting like, country specific ones or language specific ones. It's like, it's pretty fascinating, like how quickly that's came to be. So, I mean, he's got a lot of talent in that regard. Obviously he can, bring an audience together, but I guess there's some questions as to some of the rest of this stuff going on.
The ethical lines start to get blurred too, because so much of like NFT projects and spaces can be driven by FOMO, right? Like you're trying to convince people, if you don't hop on the bus now, you're going to miss out forever. This is going to the moon, all of this stuff. And he's basically employing a similar tactic, except with, getting investors there. But like you said, Clay, I mean, you would go read, it was incredibly polarizing because you had some people going after him hard, which I think kind of rightfully so, but then you had a ton of defenders too. And I was like, wow, this guy did amass quite an audience to have this many people defending him.
Yeah, there were a ton of people who were like, I stand with Ryan in this. I'm like,
yeah.
Why?
I think like anything, the extremes are the extremes, right? I thought one of my biggest takeaways was I thought it was a lot of people's responses who were kind of caught up in the middle of this were very poised. And I actually appreciate reading through a lot of people's like Twitter threads, kind of just explaining, I thought pretty candidly, their either like involvement or their take on the situation. So to me, that was kind of like a nice net outcome for, CT as a whole. Was like, it was cool to see a little bit of, transparency in that sense, but there's obviously a whole lot of murkiness to kind of still float through.
I mean, if I give him credit for something, it'd be willing to fire up that space knowing it was going to be a true firing squad and basically bringing up a
I was thinking about that.
parade.
How much sleep you think he got the night before?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what.
Maybe it doesn't matter, but
I have like decent mental health, good headspace. I don't know how I would have, if I could sit through 2 hours of bringing people on stage to directly roast me and call me out for like my improprieties.
Yeah. The man's committed, at least. I don't know.
He is. Well,
can't say he's running from it. Can't say he's running from it. He does. I will say he has the goated audio setup though for spaces. I don't know if you saw that video he posted a long time ago, and like you would appreciate this, but it's like, man, he's got like the configuration that plugs into this shit and then plugs into this shit. But there's like microphone and like a second sound box. He's like, my guy looks like he's running the stage at Coachella or something for these Twitter spaces, but. I
was watching a podcast, a video version this morning. I think it was the Rich Roll podcast, and he shoots his live from this sick LA studio, and it's like all a black like background on this nice wood table, and you have multiple people in person. And I've always been jealous, and I know Andy, you've gotten to do some of that now with We Do a Little. Like there is just such an incredible thing with getting to do IRL podcasts and being in the same room.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. I mean, like. We got to a really fun one that I'm looking forward to releasing for this new season is we had Dink on and talked with him for like almost 3 hours. And it was just like so fun. Like, cause I've talked to him, like at like some underdog stuff, like random events. But I'd never really gotten to like sit down and have a real conversation with him outside of just like random shooting the shit. But it just like, it totally changes the dynamic of the conversation. I feel like doing it in person. Because you're not looking at your phone, you're not distracted by a million other things, you're not looking at your computer screen. It's really, really nice. We're trying to figure out whether or not we want to get like an actual podcast studio for it versus like what we have going right now, which works good enough. But it's a fun time.
There's got to be so much empty podcast space available in the city still, because that's like a big thing with office space right now. Is like there's a lot of like office buildings that leases have ended from still like COVID.
I get so many cold emails of people trying to sell me office spaces.
Really?
Yeah, we got to run back our Underdog IRL podcast because that was a blast. Like to your point, like when we all were sitting there on the couch,
it was really fun
at the Brooklyn office. Like that was a good time.
See, this is my problem. Is I've never gotten to do stuff at like a studio setup that's already bulletproof, like it's gonna work perfectly. Like every time I'm going
Oh, yeah,
in
it
being like,
stressed you the
what
hell out.
tech nightmare. I did even Pat Crane and I way back did a live Fantasyland episode in Vegas from the Planet Hollywood, and it was like trying to work with them to get the mics and the audio, and we're getting reverb and all this stuff. And I'm like, I love doing live shows so much, and yet I get anxiety from the tech standpoint. So I need one of these studios that's just turnkey. You walk in and you don't have to do shit. All right.
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Speaking of podcasts, I think we got to discuss the Aaron Rodgers quotes this morning real quick.
Oh, yeah.
You saw what I shared in
I saw you drop this in here. Set this up.
So basically, Aaron, he's got to make this big decision on his retirement and like his future with the Packers and what precisely he wants to do. So I think it was this weekly, was it Tuesday, right? Yeah, this weekly hit on the McAfee show. And yeah, he comes out and he says that he's going to go on a darkness retreat in a couple weeks. It's 4 days, complete darkness, just himself in a little house. Quote, I've had a number of friends who've done it and they've had profound experiences. He expects a decision after that. And then he goes on to say that there are only 2 slots where food is dropped in. If someone can't handle the 4 days, they're allowed to leave. No music, no one else inside, just you and the darkness and your thoughts. And that's how this man's going to make his retirement decision.
And I've heard of like obviously the silent meditation retreats where you'll go for, a week and you won't talk, but I've never heard of a actual darkness retreat. That actually sounds more demoralizing than anything to me.
Yeah. Chip Skylark's right, man. It's like people would literally pay to put themselves in solitary confinement. Like, my God.
Aaron Rodgers.
Go do some more ayahuasca, bro. Like, go on another ayahuasca retreat.
He's clearly trying to find God or something along those lines. Like you said, he did the ayahuasca journey. He's searching for it out there.
Shailene broke him. I think that's what happened. Like,
yeah, it really seems like it.
He's a different person.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, in either that or Aaron Rodgers is just one of the best engagement farmers we have going these days. Because this is something I feel like he'd say if you just want to get 1 million people to reply.
Very excited for him to launch his like mushrooms business, little microdosing capsules.
Do you guys remember the prop bet? I believe like Action Network covered it, but it was a guy saying he would live in complete darkness. And I think it was for a month out of a hotel or like a bathroom, basically. It was like a single room in complete darkness. Same idea with just food getting shuttled in. And there was all kinds of action on this prop bet. It was between I think 2 poker players. And
I do remember this from like,
I don't know if anyone in the chat remembers this. I think it was like a solitary confinement bet.
Yeah. Did it actually ever happen? Or was it just like it got talked? It was obviously a thing, right? But
here it is.
It did come through.
I pulled this up. Hallucinations and $100,000. The poker player who shut himself in a pitch black room for weeks. Rich Alati had a 6-figure sum as long as he could survive 30 days in the dark with no human contact. And I guess the interesting part about this is he did say that he was like very well practiced in meditation heading into it. And that was kind of like his secret sauce. Because if you don't have a background of being able to control your thoughts, and find a peaceful state, you're fucked.
Yeah. God damn. I think that was another like Mr. Beast video. Is he had somebody like live inside of like a circle for like 3 months or something.
Yeah.
They couldn't and they stepped outside of the circle, like they lost, but if they stayed inside the circle for like 3 months, it was, and the circle had a house in it and everything, but the guy like couldn't he would get forced to go do tasks or some shit outside. I watched this it was like cut up on TikTok of all things, like a 45-minute video just cut up on all these like little TikTok segments.
Well, that's and you see what the quote here, the psychiatrist says, the risks of trivializing solitary confinement, anger, anxiety, and despair, often with high risk of suicide, is the average clinical presentation of prisoners in solitary. So I'm like, where is this darkness retreat? Like, where scientifically are they signing off on
Who's putting this on?
It also, I listened to this podcast episode over the weekend. I think it was like the New York Times. They do like a story version on their feed on weekends. And it was about, and I'm going to like butcher the scientific names of it, but it's like the quietest place in the world. And there's a couple of these labs that they've engineered that basically have zero sound. and that they hosted or had contests where like who can stay in there the longest, because you start to like hear like the blood in your veins and obviously like your heart beating to where it overwhelms you from a psychological perspective to have zero noise and to just hear yourself in such a loud way. And people can't last in it because it's too tormenting.
That would freak me out.
Yeah.
That would freak me
Yeah, I
out.
don't know
I
if
can't
that's
even handle.
I don't think
I
I
can't
do
even
that.
handle going back to like rural North Carolina anymore because it's so goddamn quiet compared to like New York City. It freaks me out. I can't sleep well.
Yeah. So I don't know why Aaron Rodgers thinks this is a good idea. It seems like by all objective measures, this will drive you crazy.
Where do you think his decision is going to be? If you had to.
Well, I mean, every single breadcrumb that came out this week was the Raiders. It seems like so obvious.
I mean, Devontae Adams is basically like saying, "Yeah, he's my neighbor now."
Yeah. To me, Rodgers is clearly just wired differently, right? Because if I was a free agent quarterback, obviously the Niners would be the best spot because they're like ready to run a Super Bowl. And then after that, I think like the Jets, who have a really good defense, some really up and coming playmakers. You can hide, a quarterback, or you could take a solid quarterback and all of a sudden you have a Super Bowl contender. Like he can go to the Raiders. Like they'll be the third best team in the AFC West if they're lucky. I mean,
back with Devontae. I mean, if he goes to Raiders, he doesn't need to find a darkness retreat. He just goes to a casino basement. He's all good.
That is like such a juxtaposition. Darkness retreat, and then I'm going to go play in Sin City.
Seriously, I mean, even if you stay away from the strip, you're just like, I don't know. Was he gonna go like post up in a tent in Joshua Tree or something and just drive an hour? Like,
yeah. There's the so Aaron Rodgers, very mercurial figure. I'm sure he like Tom Brady just doesn't stay out of the news cycle. So I'm sure we will be hearing from them. Andy, you piqued my interest. You said you've been blasting off hard in the Underdog hoop streets. Once you said you made your own spreadsheet for it, that's when I knew you were taking things seriously.
Yeah, here, I'm currently trying to fill it in because I did a couple of drafts, Underdog Cardio Club. I was on the treadmill at the gym, and so I was ripping a couple of drafts. So I don't have it quite up to date. So don't take my exposures and stuff at face value. Not that it matters that much.
Okay.
But all right, let me share this screen. So I'm currently working with a general theory, I guess, to start, that I've been following every day, like who's winning these tournaments, what kind of teams do they have, what's their like roster construction. And generally it seems like it's kind of just like best player available, and for the most part around final ADP. Like it doesn't, generally most weeks, the guy who's winning the tournament doesn't have like some crazy pick that he took 20 picks above ADP. Every once in a while there's an outlier there. And like last night was a bit weird because there were like a lot of kind of later scratches of different players and stuff. But even then, like the guy who won had like a pretty traditional like roster construction. I'll go back. Let me pull up one of the old like last couple nights games, and
what kind of volume are you getting down in these?
So it depends. It depends on the day and how much time I have. Mm-hmm. But if I'm like really going hard, I'll probably get, I think the most I got was like 100 drafts. But that was trying to go with a lot of auto drafting. More realistically, probably in like the 40 to 50 range, where I'm trying to not like hard auto draft. But so, all right, let me try
last
sharing
it's pretty much by ADP. Like,
so you can look and see, it's like he took Tatum, Vucevic, Claxton, Poole, Cam Thomas, and then a Robert Williams swap at the end. But like that is essentially ADP team.
Yeah.
And then like this team, very, very similar. Yeah. This team is like very similar of Embiid, Siakam, replacement here. So, a bit wonky. Desmond Bain, another replacement. Sunday night was a little bit weird.
The Najee replacement's kind of wild for him to go as your third pick. Like he would never be, which is exactly the point of the whole swap situation. But like that's evidence probably too of a smaller slate, I reckon.
Shout out to Chip Skylark.
Hey.
He's in the chat.
Hey.
Yeah. But so like
There's
here's
nobody.
another example where it's generally a he drafted along ADP. If I remember correctly, he got Murray like a couple picks. He basically got like a really good draft as far as like everyone kind of slid like a pick or so. And so kind of what I'm working with this is I just want to like experiment more with like how valuable is it to just beat ADP consistently. And so that's mostly what I'm tracking here. And so what I do is like I pulled in all the players, and then I basically have this like my ADPs tab, and I like go through and just add every draft that I do with like their player ID, and it just like kind of auto populates.
Yeah.
Which is manual, which sucks. It's annoying, but have to do it. And so then I have this tab where basically I'm like tracking like my exposure for each player, but then also I'm trying to like see basically is there value here, and essentially me having like good value across the board of getting players consistently later than their ADP. And so like kind of this like the strategy that I'm generally working with and want to like kind of prove out is just like, can you be a consistently winning player if essentially your only strategy is to like beat the final line consistently for the like top 36 players? Because almost every single time the people who are winning these lineups, at least 5 of their 6 players are in the top 36 drafted players, outside of like weird nights where there's a lot of injury replacements and stuff.
So there's 2 ways to accomplish that, right? You either are in a draft where maybe people are taking more risks and then you are getting guys to fall to you and you're getting a lot of ADP value, or there's an element you're saying where you're going to target guys who you think their ADP for other factors, whether injury related or whatever, is going to push them up, and then you're getting closing line value on them.
Yeah, and so that's the other thing that I'm like trying to experiment here with is basically for the first half of the day drafting more opinionated, and then the second half of the day as ADPs kind of harden a little bit, basically just drafting value ADP, almost like pure just auto draft. What's the best pick outside of like I don't want to stack 3 players on the same team or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Speaking of Dink,
oh
I
yeah,
was
go
just saying,
ahead.
Pete, real quick, as the guy. Speaking of Dink, like I mean, the days that I feel like I perform the best on these drafts are after I've watched like the ETR's like injury show, that Dink and Gallagher do at 2 p.m. on YouTube. It's one of their free shows, and it's like helpful because like they're both so sharp when it comes to like how they're thinking about like their leans for like if a player's be in or out. And that's when you can kind of take a little bit of advantage, I think, especially in what Andy's saying with the closing line value. If you know a star is likely to be ruled out, and the guy who's gonna kind of step in and take a lot of that usage is getting drafted in like the 6th round or undrafted, like start hammering at least in the 5th, 6th round, but you can feel comfortable reaching a little bit too, knowing that by the end of the night, once the news is more clear, they might be going like the 3rd round or something like that, and you could like get way more opportunity to kind of cycle through the players at ADP in the first 3 to 4 rounds. That's been something that I've been like really enjoying. But again, like to Andy's point, like I'm with you. You draft a little wilder earlier in the day and take some shots based on that kind of stuff, and then once you get kind of towards like lock, things kind of cement more, and the ADP is like so sharp and like kind of ironed out that at that point you got to kind of just get the right combo, which can still be fun.
And like there's so many combos that you could auto draft 150 lineups,
like
and
last
odds are
night.
you don't have any.
Last night, if you
matches.
asked me blindly if that was like it could be a duped lineup, I would say that's a very high chance of being a duped lineup based on how drafts were going yesterday. But it was unique, which is incredible, and it wasn't crazy. Like I mean, that's very reasonable. And Robert Williams is already getting drafted in the drafts that I was doing in the last round by late afternoon. So, even that swap was kind of perfect. I imagine that was, either a particular draft or earlier in the day before Time Lord got, drafted more consistently in the late rounds.
So are you saying there's almost, and again, NFA, not financial advice, but it just, even someone like me who's not following this closely, if I just auto draft a few teams really close to lock, that it's almost hard for me to be getting it in bad, at least?
I think that there is there's this one player, he goes by, his handle is Feed the Freezer.
Yeah.
And yeah. I'm pretty sure his entire strategy, he definitely sets rankings, but I'm pretty sure he mostly auto drafts. But yeah, like I think that there's and it's hard because you need like a decent bankroll to try this. But like I think that if you were to auto draft 150 lineups, if you were to auto draft in the last 150 drafts of the day, if you were in all 150 auto draft all of them, I think you could probably be a winning player. if you did
I
it,
also,
if
I
you
also
did it
think
long
if you
enough.
only did, I think it's the extremes. I think if you have the bankroll to do that, I also think you can survive if you do like 2 or 3 drafts a day at the end of the day. Because if you just cash one, you're gonna break even enough to play again the next day. But like you could easily get
Hmm.
like a very good lineup that would, you could 200x or you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
so like that, I
yeah,
think that's pretty consistent because all you have to do is if both lineups suck, that's fine. You're down $10. If you hit one lineup, you broke even. If that 1 or 2 lineups do very well that night, then you are, partying.
And the
yeah.
reason, and for people who haven't been playing in these, the reason this differs from, it's like if you did this with the battle royale ones, one, you'd end up with way too many lineups that looked very similar, and two, you'd have very little correlation. And there's so much power to having correlation both on a team level and a game level, but that doesn't exist here in this format. Would you say, is there even like, because I know even in NBA DFS sometimes people are like, yeah, if you bank the game that goes to overtime and you're overstacked there, you can ship it. Like, do people ever
On smaller
draft game
slates, for
slots?
sure. I
Yeah.
I think on smaller slates you see it more often because obviously there's more limited, it's more concise to a particular couple of game environments. But that's where I think you do see totals more come into play, or at least I treat it more like that on like a larger slate because you're drafted the same number of spots in these drafts, which is nice in a super flex. So on a larger slate, there's just more studly players available. You don't really go into that as much. You're more so trying to like pick out the 1 or 2 players on a team that have the best chance of popping off. But like if it's a small slate, like 4 games, and one of the games is like Houston, Sacramento, I'm probably trying to get as many of those players as possible, or whatever the highest total, like lowest, shittiest defensive, matchups are going to be. I think it ranges like that, but yeah, it's definitely something that comes into consideration, especially when it comes to like teams being down players as well. That's why the injury news is so important on these contests. Like if two big studs are getting ruled out, like let's say like Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday are all sitting, well, then you're probably going to want, like, you could get away with like $2 or $3 on the last few rounds, especially because you're not going to be giving up crazy value and can bank on more usage being available to those players.
So how much, Andy, are you reconciling trying to just get as much closing line value versus actually managing your portfolio? Or if like one guy continues to drop, are you just hammering them, or will you pump the brakes?
That's something I've actually done a really bad job of. That's burned me pretty consistently as I'm trying to like really get the right strategy down for this. I think like a good example of that is I ended up with like way too much Christian Wood last night, and so I had a couple other players that I was heavy on because of my strategy early, and I had like a lot of uh, Cam Thomas who like went crazy, and a couple other players who did really well. But I ended up with like 30% Christian Wood, which like on paper sounded good. But I think it just like, I think that's another thing that's interesting with this is I really don't think it's valuable to ever be more than like 1.5 times the field or two times the field is like if you're really, really, really confident on it. But like, I think it's really hard to make the case to have more than like 24% for a given player. And I ended up with like 30% Christian Wood. And so I had a lot of really good teams with Cam Thomas that could have pushed for like the top 10 that ended up not making it. And so that's something that I'm still trying to figure out. And so like for example, this morning I was doing drafts. Because of my weird fasting thing, I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning. I don't know. And so I was doing drafts and it was really weird. Like the draft lobbies were really weird at 5:30 in the morning Eastern time. And I was getting Trae Young like really, really late, but I also was like 90% Trae Young after doing like 10 drafts. So it's like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't feel comfortable having 90% Trae Young exposure. But like that balanced out over the day. Since like I generally started drafting ADP and his ADP has been moving up, I'm not going to get as much of him later on in the day.
Right.
But
And
it's definitely something I'm still learning. I have had a couple good nights, but so far I have been a losing player doing this. I more just like believe that it is the right strategy and want to keep trying to do it.
Do you think it
well, and it's
changes by
'cause
round, Andy? Like, for example, do you put more of an emphasis on that in like an earlier round as opposed to a later round?
I think the one hard thing is the earlier rounds are generally pretty scripted outside of like one guy maybe taking someone different. And so I do think it can be like a little bit punishing if you have the fourth guy as your number one, like you can't just take him every time you're one of the top 4 picks because you're going to end up with like an insane amount of exposure to him because everyone else is going to always take the top 3 players.
Right.
And I think
so,
I think sometimes
like
too, when
that,
you think about being overweight on something, like if you
nights.
think there's a really huge edge there or that the market is just completely undervaluing it, you want to purposefully hammer that. That makes sense. But if a guy's just slipping a pick and a half past ADP every time, so you're always ending up with him, and it's like the probability of him outproducing the other guys around him isn't that high, then you're like, wait, why do I have 80% of a guy who's like marginal value just the way the drafts always break?
Yeah, like I think a good example of that the last couple of nights has been like Domantas Sabonis, who he's a first round pick almost always. But the last couple of nights, he generally is like the first or second ranked person on ETR's rankings or player, and probably going like 4th or 5th on Underdog. And it's like, sure, he's projected to score 1.5 more points than like the 3 other guys who he's projected in front of. But like, is that worth having significantly more exposure to him and less exposure to these other guys? Probably not, because like their ceiling is generally the same.
Yeah. And Chip's bringing up another point here, and I was going to ask you about this, how you handle the swap element, because that comes into play way more with NBA with all of the late scratches and stuff. How much are you manually setting your rankings for late scratches? Or are you just saying, hey, the ADP is so good that whatever I get thrust into my lineup is going to be the best play?
It's something that I haven't done a good enough job of. Because I do think like the one thing kind of interesting thing is like the 6th pick, the final pick of the draft is like where I think you can like kind of get a little bit weird for the most part, unless it's like a massive slate. And so like I'll normally reach a little bit further on that last one. I'll scroll down. I normally draft with about a 50 player list. And it's something that I need to be better at, but I am also like pretty busy, and so I don't always have time to like make all the last minute swaps. But I do think that's like super important. Like the last night, if you were on top of your swaps, you probably made money because you put in Robert Williams, you put in a couple of other guys who ended up doing really well based on some like last minute people who were out, and so there's a lot of value there.
Well, actually, that's a good point, right? Because I guess the dynamic with NBA is that the ADP is for a fixed point in time, but if it's the late breaking news makes another player the optimal guy, that you're going to actually have to manually do it and not rely on the ADP to do it.
The ADP is like definitely never perfect, but because there just is news that changes throughout the day, and so what at the first quarter of the drafts when you have no idea what like that slate looks like are not always super valuable. But it's really fun. It's a very interesting challenge.
We'll hop into draft here in a sec. One more question for you. Like, obviously, I know with NBA DFS, right? Value can open up where a guy's like basically a must play, like free square could go from being like 5% owned to like needing to be 80%. Like, what's the biggest jump in, like, I guess these are 6-round drafts. Can you see a 6th round pick jump into the first round, or a guy getting undrafted jump that high? Or is it maybe a couple rounds would be the most you'd see a guy move?
It definitely happens. Like there are nights where like if LeBron and AD are both announced out, like all of a sudden Russell Westbrook goes from being a 6th round pick to a 1st or 2nd round pick or different things like that. It doesn't happen super often because like unlike traditional DFS, everyone's value is exactly the same. Like there's no salary. It's just where are you drafting them. And so like when the 4th string point guard is going to get the start, it doesn't mean that they're still going to be better than the starting point guard for the Suns, because like if you could draft both of them in the 6th round, I'd still rather have the starting point guard who doesn't suck. So it's a bit different in that sense.
And the no salary thing changes stuff too, because again, it's just like value is not the same value when you don't have a salary restraint. It's like I might as well try to plug like a starter from another team, or you don't always have to just like jam the fill-in guy unless it's like absolutely great spot. The crazier part is when you have it in reverse, and it's like, let's say it's like one of the studs, that's going consistently top 4 pick, and they get like a random midday like illness tag, which has been kind of the fate of doom.
Shout out to Deontay Murray's migraine today.
Yeah. Oh, did he get ruled out?
I think he got marked questionable. I'm not sure if he's ruled out or not.
Yeah, we
But
can
so
go
that's
refresh
actually what's most
the underdog
interesting, I
thing.
think, like Clay was saying, is
Yeah.
basically because of how the swaps work and the rounds work, one of my favorite things to do is when a player like that gets marked questionable, if they're previously a first or second round pick and I can get them in the fifth or sixth round and I feel pretty good about the players I would swap them for. I love taking them there because even if they don't play, I can swap them for someone who I like would have maybe drafted anyways.
Yeah. And if they get ruled out and you kind of catch that ahead of time, or if it's late enough in the day, like you just know that like X number of drafts, like a team has this player as the number 1, number 2, number 3 pick, and their swap is going to be a 6th round plus player, despite how good the fill-in could be, and likely in most scenarios, the fill-in's probably drafted in the 5th or 6th round. If it's, Giannis is out, like Bobby Portis is probably already going to have been drafted in the 6th round. He's not going to necessarily always be there as a swap in. But it's fun. I love the game theory part of it. It's a puzzle every day.
Do you have the Underdog notifications turned on for tweets so you're constantly be able to adjust in real time as you're drafting and not missing any quick moves?
Yeah, well, if you play NBA DFS at all, I mean, I hope you have notifications turned on.
Yeah, Justin.
I follow Fantasy Labs.
Shout out Fan.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you gotta get on Underdog now, man, because Justin Fan came over from Fantasy Labs to Underdog to run their account. So
I'm just so used to it.
They were breaking the damn Kyrie trade news before Woj was this last time or something. It was like Shams, like the feed was like Shams Underdog Woj. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. All right, talk me through a couple of these, or you're more than welcome to top. And it looks like actually this one was already.
Yeah, I might have got it in the one after.
Influencer 101. That's what we do around here.
Liddy.
Do I get to take my guy Jokic 101? Is he the optimal 101?
Yeah, I think you basically always take Jokic here.
He definitely.
I normally
He's the highest ceiling on the slate. They're playing the Wolves. I think Gobert is questionable. Not that it even really matters for Jokic. That's like the only consideration of why you wouldn't take him. One is just Gobert matchup. I mean, he can handle anyone.
Yeah. He's kind of far and away in this slate, the number 1 pick. Sometimes it's a bit more contentious, but to me, it's not really a question here.
I think Anthony Davis, number 2, is pretty interesting. I don't necessarily. He wouldn't be my number 2. I would take LeBron over him.
Well, I just don't know how to play the LeBron point title stuff.
Yeah,
That's
actually,
such a weird unknown.
Where are we at on that? We talked about.
Well, it could happen tonight. I know. You missed. I should have hit you up, but you missed a great opportunity to have LeBron on the thumbnail today. It's super topical. We might be doing a playback stream tonight for Knights if he still gets ruled in, because he's only 36 points away from breaking it. And so it's a home game tonight versus the Thunder on TNT, and the game on Thursday is against the Bucks. That's the one that myself and a lot of people thought would be the most likely candidate, like last week. But I don't know. I can't remember who it was. Someone on NBA TV last night made a great point that like, if he should and could and probably will go for it tonight, because if he gets it, it's more of a guarantee they win tonight than against the Bucks. Bucks are a much better team. Likely you'd probably want to do it on a night where your team also wins. They desperately need a win. So it's like he's going to be going for it, maybe probably not intentionally, like not like coming out and jacking up extra shots. Like I think they're just so hyper focused on like every win for them is hella important at this point. So I'm trying to bet is over. It's just like the line's so fucked. They have it at like plus 100 and LeBron over like 35.5 points should be like, I don't know, plus 300, 400. So that was kind of.
I think that he is like, of anyone, he is the guy who would want Kareem to be at the game where he is breaking the scoring title.
That's a problem. That's a thing.
And so I parlayed the LeBron under points and over on assists for the night. That's my bet that he is not going to do it tonight.
Wow, you guys are really making me think I should have taken LeBron 101 here. Jeez. And I guess I could have more.
I don't know.
He's like a really big unknown there. It's interesting.
So talk a noob through this, other than me just drafting the highest available player. What should I be looking for next?
Yeah, so I think the most interesting thing on this slate is there's a couple of guys who, like Brandon Ingram is projecting really high on like most of the projections, like way past ADP on here. Like they basically have him as like the 7th best player. And so I really like going first. If you get lucky, you can get Jokic, Ingram, and Claxton. And I think that is like the nuts first round 3 players.
I haven't figured out why everyone's so high on BI tonight. I don't quite get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't
He's just
quite
really
get it.
good.
I know he's really good, but it's just like,
Oh,
I mean,
Ingram does go here.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I like Jamal Murray tonight. If you want to go Denver, like he's had great usage.
It's really just a question of whether or not he plays.
The
That's the
ETR
biggest
guys seem to
unknown
think
there.
that he would be likely to play.
Do you still like Claxton or only with Ingram?
Yeah, I would definitely be taking
in all
Claxton.
occurrences. Well, then you won't get duped by Andy. Then I'm just kidding.
That's right. Who do you guys like for the second pick?
Chip just got Clax in our draft.
So this is a hard one. I think of the next 3 players, I wouldn't take Murray just because I already have Jokic. Like I do think that's like a decent level of like they're on the same team.
Negative correlation.
Yeah. I think I like DeRozan the best of those 3. I think he's most likely to play of the 3. Which
Jamal is probable, by the way, officially not questionable, which means he's more likely to be in. Which is also something interesting because in the draft they have him as a Q tag still, whereas like on the injury report, Underdog has him as a probable tag. I don't know if one is outdated or not. But those are also things that you can take advantage of too. Is again, like it's like DraftKings, Pete, where it's like you build a lineup and a player has a Q tag, but they're ready to rock, but people don't want to click them, so their roster percentage is way lower than it would be. It's kind of that shit kind of applies here too with some of the tags.
Yeah. Let's see here. Any other interesting builds so far, or is this pretty by the book?
Pretty standard. I've seen like basically like the Julius Randle, Trae Young, Anthony Edwards kind of all go in that like end of the draft. This week is like kind of weird. This night. It's like there's a couple like the ADPs and kind of the way they've fallen are just like a little bit strange. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like a lot of the drafts are all kind of going the exact same way that I've been in.
Yeah.
But then every once in a while, like I just had a guy in my draft take Cam Thomas at 8, and so you never know.
Yeah, and then you get all excited because you know you're going to get a super different, like textured board than you've had in a while.
Yeah, it's definitely nice. But yeah, so far nothing crazy here. Like Dejounte Murray's been slipping because of his Q tag. Mm-hmm. Devin Booker is also a really big unknown who just got drafted because he's been out for 21 games and he'll definitely be on like a minutes restriction.
Yeah.
And so I've for the most part been staying away from him, but
fade the Suns.
If he falls far enough, it's like interesting.
Fade the Suns. I'm high on the Grizzlies tonight. They're in an incredible matchup against Chicago. Also, there's like some question about DeRozan's hip, so you could even take some shots on like Vooch or Zach LaVine. I mean, this is some of my homerism coming in, but Kobe White's a late round, 6th round flyer that's going to be undrafted. And if DeRozan did get rolled out and Cruz is out, like, that's big minutes. That's what I'm saying. He could. I might have to throw him in one tonight. If
a lot of the late round picks have been Nets.
Yeah,
there's like Ben Simmons and Edmund Sumner are both.
That's the thing. Simmons is back. And he's going to cut in the summer. I think Thomas is the safest net, but there's some concern that. Well, there's concern that one Simmons might come off the bench, which I think is fair. Not quite sure what his role looks like, and then probably the person who would cut into the most would be Sumner because their games overlap more so than like Thomas, who's obviously proven he's a fairly legitimate scorer in the NBA. That's just crazy, man. This dude's put up 90 fucking 3 points in 2 games, some shit like that.
All right,
mad impressive.
What are we looking at next?
So I do like Desmond Bane a lot here. It also does like I don't know how much I value the same game correlation stuff, but you have DeMar like taking Desmond Bane here is pretty nice. I also just like think he's good and he relatively he projects pretty well. His ADP is currently worse than his ranking. His projected score is on ETR.
Gotcha.
So he's a guy I normally feel pretty good about.
Who do we like for the second pick?
This one's harder. So I believe, like, comparatively, I think Paolo does project better than Russell. But at
You got
the
Russ
same
revenge
time,
game narrative, kind of fun.
It's like not
And
that much, and then you also have Russ, like the Minnesota and Denver kind of similar thing of two guys playing against each other.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
And
gonna say
so
Russell Westbrook even. Both
Oh,
of them.
Russell
saying,
Westbrook. Oh, revenge
Russell
game. I
Westbrook
got you.
scares me.
He
Yeah.
does. I don't know, but if it would play into your LeBron under narrative, Andy. To be fair,
Yeah,
Clay, I don't know enough about NBA to call you out on your Galaxy branding, but the chat is calling you out for this Kobe White play for you here. Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair.
Who is your Chicago Bear wide receiver? That Jazz Newsome?
Daz Newsome. Yeah.
Jazz Newsome, yeah.
I'm saying only Kobe if DeRozan and Caruso are ruled out. There would be 35 plus minutes. They need scoring in a hopefully a high scoring game. I don't think you need it tonight. I think there's enough games tonight where you don't need to go that thin. But on like a 4-gamer, that would be a viable play in my opinion.
What is there tonight? 7, 8?
I think 8
tonight.
I don't know. Clearly, I have no fucking idea. Let's see.
Who are your favorite sleepers on this slate down here?
6. Wait, how many games are there? I have no idea. How do I tell?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Yeah.
Favorite sleepers on this board.
Mr. Irrelevant.
We gotta hop in another.
Yeah,
one.
so
you finish this one.
I like Ben Simmons and Clint Capella here. Those have been the two guys, but Wendell Carter also like projects pretty well. I think the 6th round this tonight is like pretty nice. But yeah, I know like who is it? I think it's Clint Capella. Yeah, like ETR has Clint Capella projected really high. I don't totally know why. And then Ben Simmons is really just like they don't have that many healthy players, and they need someone to do something.
Oh, Andy, you were onto something with the Jamal Murray thing. I missed that. He was downgraded to questionable. It looks like he went from probable to questionable. I imagine.
Yeah,
It was like the last thing I just saw. So, yeah, that would be
trying
less
to stay
bullish.
away a little bit there.
Yeah.
The
Also, yeah, Terrence, I did
people
take
get scared away by this
I
eye
took
tag
Trey
here.
and Levine. I don't know. It's weird. I think just tags in general. The eye tag's a good tag. It means they're coming back.
I think people just hate Ben Simmons.
Hey,
Like I think he gets like a 5 pick like cut basically because everyone likes to make fun of him.
There you go. This is how I win.
So you got Joker, Clax, DeMar, Bane, Russell.
How big of an issue are dupes on these smaller slates? Do you get a lot of chop pots up top?
Not that I see really. I mean,
Yeah,
with like a 4-gamer or something as it gets slower, but 6, I feel like normally no.
Yeah.
And the consistently shifting ADP throughout the day, I think helps that out a lot too.
Yeah.
Like I said, like last night was like, that was that lineup surprised, honestly, that there wasn't a dupe of it.
We just got double sniped. Simmons Capella here.
Yeah.
One
So
of the top sounds about right, Crutch.
Here then, like, it's tough. There's like a bunch of guys you could take. Honestly, I think you could like basically any of the top
Scroll down.
4 guys. I feel pretty good about. I'm not sure who the chat's been taking in positions like this, but
you saw that name at the bottom there. No,
All right, I guess I'm just taking best player available. I was told that I don't even have to know about NBA. I just take the top guy at the queue and I just print.
let's run it back again.
All right, we'll do one more here.
Yeah.
Let's kick up the stakes. Let's kick it up. Let's go to a 25 here.
oh baby,
Oh, shit. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can make sure I get in here. 3. All right, cool.
these sometimes feel a little bit slower.
Oh, not with
Not with this crowd.
not on the stream.
Yeah, true.
Let me
Come
go
put your
pull my
big boy pants on.
Yeah, I gotta pull up my projections now.
Oh wow! Now we're pulling up the projections.
Uh-oh.
Now we're fired
We got-
from
we
the
got-
hip.
we gotta tune up a little bit.
Goodness.
I've been blasting away any of those best ball winnings and BR winnings right back into the Underdog bank account. So
All right, from first to last, no more influencer 101s.
no, I love it.
I
Chip.
kind of like the last pick here as well. Yeah, no, Chip, I appreciate it. I'm reading all the messages.
Yeah, no, you're right. Commenting gold star performance today. All right, I'll get a different side of the draft board for these ones.
A lot of
Yeah.
badges in this.
I think both are pretty interesting.
Facts.
Like the interesting thing here is I think Randall is really nice. A lot of times you get him at 6. Basically, you definitely want to take Randall at 6, assuming or someone who has a higher ADP than him.
Right.
And then I've seen basically ETR's projection has Brandon Ingram as the next projected player, but his ADP is 15. So it's pretty hard to rationalize taking him there.
Unless you want combos of Randall and Ingram, and you're not going to get that ever with him coming back around.
Yeah, it's basically otherwise impossible to get, which is a fun.
All right, I mean,
little thing.
You just set up. I mean, if I'm in a Galaxy brain, here we go.
All right.
Don't dupe me, bros.
But yeah, so they'll definitely give you a pretty differentiated lineup outside of the other people anyone who's just hard drafting based on ETR projections. But yeah, that's where it's interesting.
What percentage of the field because I know the ETR rankings drive ADP in a lot of contests. Are they the largest driver in these?
From what I can tell, yes. You can kind of tell when someone's doing the ETR rankings. I don't update my rankings with it. I just use them as a guide for the most part.
But
yeah,
this would be an instance
you
where their rankings haven't caught up with the ADP, right? If Ingram's going 10 spots after where they have him.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Their rankings also come out pretty late in the day comparatively. They come out typically sometime between 1 and 2. So maybe sometimes earlier, but never before noon. And at that point, you're already about a third of the way through the draft. And so it is harder to really shift the ADP because you just have a lot of people who are going to draft against ADP. And so you need a pretty, every once in a while it happens. You'll just see a player kind of rocket up the board.
Right.
And normally that's a player who you didn't know was going to play, who then is playing kind of thing. But I feel like it doesn't shift them that much. But you just can kind of tell. You'll see someone in the lobby who is drafting stuff, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I was hoping I could get them soon." And clearly, we're looking at the same things here. But also, I think for the most part, a lot of rankings for basketball are they're not massively different, and they really what matters in a lot of that is for FanDuel or something, the explicit points versus salary is so important. Whereas in this, it's just all that matters is kind of point projection.
Right.
And so the rankings kind of don't differ as much in that sense.
Yeah. All right, Andy, what should I be looking at here? I can't trust the enemy.
Yeah, so this is a hard one.
Sandbagging in this draft.
I generally here would take Josh Giddey, but I think that's also a little bit of me being an Oklahoma City Thunder fanboy.
About it.
I like him. And then, yeah, it's hard to say. I think you probably want to take one of DeRozan or Murray, and just kind of, if they don't play, fourth round, a swap isn't the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
But
did.
it's hard to say. That's where I don't really know what the strategy is there.
Terrence wanted us to reach for Bane again.
Yeah, I mean, I do really like Desmond Bain tonight. But I think that's also part of it, where it depends on how much you're drafting too. You know, if you're drafting like 2 lineups or something, there probably is a better case to be made to like reach for the one lineup you think is like absolutely the nuts. Versus if you're drafting 100 lineups and you just want to make sure that you're kind of getting appropriate exposure to player while potentially differentiating slightly and like kind of making a couple bets. So it's like I try pretty hard to not reach crazy hard for players, even if I really, really like them, just because like you end up with way too much of them and like there's just a lot of risk set on there. But it's hard to say what's best. I certainly do not know. There's probably people in this chat who know more than I do there.
I am too blissfully ignorant to be scared off by a Q tag. Sorry, Chip.
So let's see what you're looking like coming
What are you
back
cooking
here.
up, Clay? Ja,
I don't know,
Edwards?
man. Yeah, I'm just going for upside, but like this is definitely like not as comfortable of a draft board today as I feel like I've felt.
It is. It is a
recently.
really weird draft.
Yeah, it's like fuck, man. There's just like a lot of landmines out there. Yeah, I'm cooking up upside. I'm definitely taking a stand right now on. I took Ja and Levine in my last draft too, so I'm breaking Andy's rules by right now. But I'm probably gonna draft like 5 today. So we'll do that.
So, all right, let's see. Coming up
We're
here,
gonna be a little pot committed on the club drafts today.
I do like Wendell Carter here.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is like a case for me where I would probably just take Bridges and Carter. Where like at this point in the draft, like they're 2 best players available, they both slip by one pick.
And I had already done kind of my
with
reach at the the turn there, so I'm probably going to have a pretty unique combo with those guys.
Chip,
you want to bear it?
Yeah, just like the minutes are so secure.
Don't play scared, nice. Clay. You don't need safety. You need upside. I know it's a $25 draft.
Should I do it?
Can't play scared.
Should I do it? Are you teasing me a good time?
Is this Kobe White?
I can't do it.
If you want to light $25 on fire, you can draft Kobe White. I think taking Clint Capella in the 6th round is really nice.
Yeah, especially if DeJounte gets rolled out. But
all right, guys. I should also, everyone in the chat are Badge Bros guys. If you're in the Deposit Kingdom Discord, they have different threads for specific sports. So where was it? Was it yesterday? Yeah, we were talking a little baseball. They got the baseball thread, talking some hoops. They got the hoops thread in there. Maybe I'll have to poke my head in, become an NBA hoops thought leader. But this was fun, guys. It's, I gotta brush up on some new sports with NFL ending.
I know, right? Need something else to entertain us.
I've been enjoying the golf streets. I'm not gonna lie.
You like the golf streets?
Oh man,
yeah. And I'm not a golf guy, but golf, like betting on golf and golf DFS are fun. I think they're good. They're good sweats, in my opinion. I've heard some of your takes, Pete, on haven't seen the light yet when it comes to golf, but more so UFC. But I don't know. It goes hand in hand with all the reasons you don't want to play NBA DFS is the reasons you would enjoy golf DFS.
Dude, I kind of think a UFC underdog drafts would be fun.
That'd be sick.
It's just like the way it works as like a progressive event-based sweat is pretty fun. And like, I think I've just been so spoiled by like the NFL where the correlation and like positional scarcity stuff is so fun to think through. It just adds this really interesting layer onto every draft where, coming over to other sports that one, I don't know as well, but to not have a correlation element to sink your teeth into is a little harder sell for me. Because then you just got to become a hashtag play the best plays guy. You know that my galaxy brain just doesn't allow for that.
Just lean more
Appreciate
into
you guys
spreadsheets.
hanging out though as well. We are settling in here to these Tuesday afternoons, mix of NFTs, sports, underdog drafts, doing the damn thing. Clay, anything else on your radar here before we get out of here?
Yeah, all good things. We just launched NBA and our Knights of Degen app as well. So we're doing an ROI-based betting tournament this week. You're able to enter all the way up through Saturday. And they got some stuff coming for the Waste Management Open betting tournament-wise. And it's the big game. I won't get us
Thank you.
cutting off here on the YouTube revenue streets. But yeah, all fun stuff on the app stuff. And yeah, the March Madness event, officially official at Always Friday Sporting Club 318 if you want to come party with us in Nashville for
Nice
opening weekend. And if you're watching the LeBron try to break the record tonight, if he plays, we'll be doing our stream on Get Playback. So come hang out. We'll do some more basketball talk, more hoops talk, if you will.
The Get Playback stuff is fun. If you guys haven't done that,
Yeah,
super
they're
easy
awesome.
to sync your cable subscription, and then you get to basically get a StreamYard feel while everyone's watching the same live feed in real time. Andy, the Escher stuff sounds awesome. Anything else on your radar?
That's really the big stuff for me. Just going to be spending a lot of time there, shilling stuff, talking to people. But otherwise, no, free time doing some basketball stuff because I think it's fun, losing some money there. I do have a couple sweats in the Super Bowl for some playoff best ball, so I'll be excited to watch those.
Nice.
But yeah, otherwise, not too much.
Yeah, I'm taking off for Arizona on Thursday. I'm going to try to force myself to record some more stuff, get some videos, channel my
Nice.
inner Jack Settleman and try to do better posting. So you can follow me there and also be on the Underdog YouTube channel doing the kickoff big board draft on Friday evening, doing live streams leading up to the Super Bowl on Sunday. So you can follow me on Twitter and check out Underdog stuff. I just saw they posted they're going to have a huge did you guys see this? The big yellow bus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on
I'm
them,
already
man.
asking if I can parallel park this thing. Check out this bad boy. How sick is this?
Oh,
So
that's
good.
incredible. Pete, I feel like you need to
So good.
you need to go do like man on the street, following around Jack doing man on the street, like a man on the street Inception kind of interview format.
Well, Jack can follow me around. Let's
bit.
know how this works. All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out as always. Like I said, if you are into to hoops, hop in the Deposit Kingdom Discord. All kinds of good stuff around there. For Andy, for Clay, I'm Pete. This is the club. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Peace.